Western Ukraine, Zakarpattia, a picturesque area nestled in the Carpathian valley and washed by the Tysa, Rika and Khustets rivers. There are ruins of an ancient castle erected on the extinct volcano. Enjoy a bird's-eye view of a steep castle mountain and beautiful landscape, defensive monastery and church of St.Elizabeth. The local history museum houses rare exhibits of this ancient land, taste delicious Zakarpatian dishes and, of course, unique local willow souvenirs. We gladly welcome you to the colorful town of Khust for a weekend.
Перша згадка про Хуст, як про місто.
The first mention of Khust as a city dates back to 1329, when it became the city of state-crowned significance. This was the beginning of the glorious history of Khust.
Історія така коротенька, легенда, такі коротенькі, як от факти із життя нашого міста.
Thousands of tourists come to Khust every year to admire ruins of the ancient castle, which has a long and interesting history. Of course, we came here as well. At the foot of the castle mountain there is a serpentine cobblestone road that leads to the ruins of the Khust castle. In age-old trees of the southern slope, the ruins of the guardhouse, connected with the castle through underground passage, have still survived. Closer to the top there is a stone arch. This is all what remains of the entrance gate to the castle, with two towers and a ditch in front of them. Then you can climb up the mountains using a narrow road. We're on the ruins of the Khust castle, the landmark of our city. Once upon a time, there was the lower courtyard with utility rooms, horse and cow stables, a bakery, a forge and a chapel. The castle was a city within a city. In the castle there was an inn and plant that produced gunpowder. It was a well-fortified structure. Walking further, we get into the upper courtyard through ruins of the gate and two guarded towers. From the south there was a round tower, one wall of which has been preserved to this day. From the east, the upper courtyard was protected by the Ferdinand's their first triangular tower, which was not preserved, but several rows of its masonry clearly indicate its location. From the northern and western sides, the yard was protected by bastions, so the castle was well guarded. When enemies attacked, local people hid inside this castle. The fact is, this castle was impenetrable.
Фактично, пресу цей замок взяти було неможливо.
In 1046, Hungarian King Laszlo I became the ruler of this land and the owner of Solotvino salt deposits, which were very valuable. He started building the castle to protect his lands. The castle was built on the 170-meter-high castle mountain, but the main defensive complex was built up by the year 1191. The unassailable Khust castle survived many different events, but its turbulent fate was interrupted by the explosions of the gunpowder warehouses in 1766. It was struck by lightning and was completely destroyed by the natural elements over the next decades. In short, unassailable Zakarpatian fortress was subject to many wars. The impenetrable Khust castle had long been ruined, but the church of St.Elizabeth of the 13th century in the Gothic style pleases the human eye to this day. This temple was built of stone and looks like a fortress. Narrow window loopholes and mighty stone walls around the temple with two gates. Window openings allow to see the thickness of the walls, so the Catholic Church is considered well fortified. During the Mongol-Tatar invasion, locals hid behind its impregnable walls.
Ми знаходимося в одній з історичних, одній з найдавніших будівель нашого міста.
The Church of St. Elizabeth is the oldest building in our city. According to legend, it was built in the 13th century, but in fact it was built in the early 14th century. Almost until the 15th century, this church was Catholic, and since 1523 to 1524, it became a Protestant church.
Користуючись тим, що ми знаходимося дуже такому, можна сказати, святому історичному місці нашого краю, запросити від...
We're in a holy and historic place to which I would gladly invite tourists interested in the history of our region. So come visit Khust to admire the local temples and other religious buildings.
Наші собори, відвідати наші церкви, відвідати пам'ятні місця і інші культурні споруди.
There is a pointed arch with Gothic lancet windows inside the temple. Recently, during the restoration of St. Elizabeth's Church, ancient Gothic frescoes depicting the saints István, Laszlo and Duke Imre, who previously decorated the walls of the temple, were found after removing an inner whitewashing. Also, the relics of famous people that owned this city in different times were buried under it. Today, the temple is active and belongs to the Protestant community. The church is open to visitors on weekends and during religious festivals. Khust is a small town in Zakarpattia, but it is interesting and unique in its own way. There are Catholic temples, churches, monuments to famous people, historical sites, graves, memorial plaques, and of course a museum. The Khust Regional Museum was opened in 1963, and its collection includes 2,500 museum exhibits. The museum has 10 halls with a total area of 1,500 square meters, which include expositions telling about the history of the region and its famous figures.
Кожний зал – це окрема історія. От, наприклад,
Each room is a separate story. For example, we're in the ethnographic hall. There are work tools, clothing of people from the 19th to the 20th centuries. We have a lot of interesting and exclusive exhibits. This hall houses the entire history of the everyday life of local residents. And on the third floor of the museum, there is a permanent exhibition of paintings by local artists depicting landmarks of this land. Its exhibits tell not only about world-famous events, but also about the short-lived state of Carpathian Ukraine. At one time, Khust was the capital of Carpathian Ukraine. For this very reason, many interesting objects of that period have been preserved in the museum. They're interesting for children and adults. People can easily get to center of Khust by urban transport.
Так що, будь ласка, приїжджайте. Будемо вас раді бачити.
Welcome to our city. We will be glad to devote all of our time to give you a tour of the city, where you will see interesting places and feel the history of our region.
Нашого домну, нашого краю.
Five kilometers away from Khust is the Ukrainian capital of willow weaving, the village of Tysa. Baskets of different sizes and designs, furniture, doll carts, and rocking chairs are exhibited at a permanent trade fair along the road to Khust. In this Zakarpattia settlement, artists create real masterpieces that can only be seen here. But weaving is not the first stage of production. Therefore, we decided to find out where locals pick willow branches and how they create their amazing works of art.
Ви завітали до нас дуже вчасно. Ми займаємо якраз чистимо лозу.
You came just in time. We're peeling willow, so you can see how hard this work is. It's necessary to boil, to peel, to cut and sort it out. Then you need to dry it out, and only then you can make products of it.
Різати, сортувати треба все, сушити і лише тоді з ним робити. Дивіться, я так його сортую. Мелка йде на...
Small willow is used for weaving baskets. Big willow is perfect for weaving basket handles, furniture and rocking chairs.
Качалки, от така товста лоза, і це йде вже на великі вироби.
Naturally, we have become accustomed to vegetable gardens in Ukrainian villages. But the main plant here is the willow. Therefore, it grows everywhere, in home gardens and in the fields.
Ця лоза росте, от так, це в домашньому условії. Росте, ми цю зрізаємо пізніше.
This is how a willow grows. It's a domesticated willow. We cut it off later and then we collect wild willow that grows 2 meters high.
Неділі дома зрізаємо. От така вона росте 3 метри, 2 метри, метр, котра яка от так знизу.
Maria's family, like most of her fellow villagers, has been engaged in this craft its entire life.
Це наш хліб, ми з цього живемо.
This is the way we earn our living. I started in my childhood and all my life I have been engaged in willow weaving. Near their house, the Dublak family opened a small shop selling various willow products. Of course, all those interested can participate in a willow weaving masterclass.
Я запрошую всіх, кого тут...
I invite all of you to visit our shop. Here you can buy rocking chairs for adults and children and baskets for fruits. Here we do it all. Willow products are beautiful, strong, comfortable, long-lasting and functional. Of course, it's very difficult to choose among a great number of willow products, but I am sure you won't leave our shop without a souvenir. So let's taste the popular dish tokan in a local restaurant. It is prepared according to the original recipe of Khust shepherds. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the city of Khust in Zakarpattia. In our complex, you can not only stay the night, but also taste delicious Zakarpatian cuisine. So I graciously invite you. We serve Zakarpatian dish, sausages of our own production and tokan, which consists of corn porridge, brinza cheese and pork rinds. We also propose that you taste our homemade pickles.
Шкварок і бринзи. Також тут знаходяться соління по-домашньому власного виробництва.
Bon appetit! Tokan is cooked of corn flour, goat cheese, brinza, and smoked pig fat. The main thing in this dish is to correctly layer all its ingredients. Tokan is layered in a bowl that is 2 centimeters thick and sprinkled with brinza. It is layered in the bowl on top of the main dish. The top layer is sprinkled with brinza and pork rinds, and you can freely add some herbs. So on your next visit to this town, try the Khust cuisine. You won't regret it.
Доброго дня.
What do you think about our Zakarpatian dish? Very tasty. We're very pleased. Please enjoy it.
Дякуємо.
The city of Khust, with almost a 1,000-year history, is a great example of peaceful coexistence of people of various nationalities and faiths. Its inhabitants are sincere and hardworking. They are very proud of their native town and always welcome guests.
Для мене місто Хуст – це все, це батьківщина.
For me, Khust is everything. It's my homeland. It's the town where I was born, where my children were born, where I had the first kiss and where I grew up. And now, when I'm 60, there is no better place for me.
І зараз уже мені скоро 60 років. Для мене кращого місця на землі нема.
Ми всі живемо, тут живемо, як королі. Нема кращої землі. Ми всі живемо, тут живемо, як королі. А я люблю свій рідний край. А я люблю свій рідний край. А я люблю свій рідний край.
Local resident, theater actor and performer of his own songs, Serhiy Maslov, made such a confession to his native city.
А я люблю свій рідний край. Якщо ти теж зі мною заспівай, що нема кращої землі.
Travel around Ukraine, discover new cities and tell about them to the whole world. Let every trip be enjoyable and memorable.
Ми всі живемо, тут живемо, як королі, а нема кращої землі.